Members, it has gone past 2 o'clock now. I want us to start with our meeting, which is the first part of the meeting. Let me make use of the opportunity to welcome you to the meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts of the Provincial Legislature of the Western Cape for purposes of looking into the annual report and the Auditor General report, as well as the audit report of the Department of Local Government. The meeting is going to be held in 2 parts. The first part is going to be a closed session meeting of the committee together with the Auditor General as well as the Audit Committee. And thereafter, we are going to move to the second part of the meeting after we've completed the briefing. So for record purposes, can I just get an indication of members that are present?
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Derek America. Yep.
Andrikus van der Westhuizen.
Good afternoon, it's Member Makamba Poja. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Matlodi Maseko.
Good afternoon, my name is Pat Maran.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon to the honorable members. My name is Una Timnqanqane.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Mariki Kotse from the Auditor General.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Tsepo Mutlomi, Auditor General Office. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Francois Barnard, Chairperson of the Audit Committee of the Governance Administration Cluster, in this instance for Department of Local Government.
know how to do that.
Yeah, Chair, if the meeting is not finished by 2:30, I want to be excused. Thanks.
Chair of Scopa, I think we do have a lot of questions, so we have to start. And I will appreciate maybe if we can arrange dinner. So
Okay, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, we are gonna start now with our second part of the meeting, as we have completed our first part where we were as the committee on the Standing Committee on Public Account, we were briefed by the Auditor General and the Audit Committee about the audit outcome of the Department of Local Government. That was a closed session. We are now coming to the second part of our meeting, which is the open session, where we will be looking at the annual report of the Department of Local Government, and also together with its Auditor General and Audit Committee report. This second part is an open session. That means it is also open to members of the public who either want to join the meeting physically or online. We are doing so because the meeting was published in various newspapers in the 3 official languages of the province, so that members of the public as well can also interact with the annual report of the department. As I've said, we've been joined by the department. It's led by the minister. Welcome, Minister. Welcome, HOD, together with your department. If we always value your presence and your coming to these meetings for purposes of accountability to the committee. Are there any opening remarks that you'd like to make? I'll allow you, and thereafter allow the HOD and the equity.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for the opportunity. And we've prepared well, so we're ready to go. So thank you very much.
HOD?
You, Honourable Chairperson. So, yeah, it's been a period for us, particularly around the local government elections, and still dealing with COVID. We also got additional funding over 50 million to assist municipalities in terms of public employment programs. Just to help citizens recover from the COVID-19. But it is reflected in the statements. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD. Honorable members, as you know that in the annual report, SCOPA only deals with section C or part C as well as part E of the report. I'm now going to allow you to first engage with part C of the report and check if are there any questions that you'd like to have on the department so far as part C is concerned. For your information, part C starts on page 86. Honorable America.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just want to raise a question on page 88, the emerging risks. The third one, decrease citizens' access to services through the Tusong program. What the department has stated there, have a direct impact on citizens should the risk materialize. This especially if government departments withdraw from the Tusong program, reasons such as buildings that could deemed to be unsafe. That's very true, and in some instances they have elected to establish themselves elsewhere. And I attended the Tusong Centre, not the Binance in Paarl in particular, and and I engaged with the executive director, who is the overseer of that centre. And what he did raise is that there are no national departments located within the Tusong Centre, and SASA is located at the shopping centre just adjacent to the Tusong Centre, and obviously paying substantially more rental there as opposed to what they would have paid at the Tusong Centre. And thirdly, and part of my engagement, but what I could assess and that because of the the perilous financial state of many municipalities because of increased demand for service delivery, not enough budget is allocated to maintenance, and certainly there is this sort of degradation of the asset that presents itself there. And my engagement with the executive director is that they have in the adjustment budget, they're going to fix whatever needs to be fixed, etc. So certainly I will monitor that. But what you did mention in particular, where the location of that Tusong Center, it is opposite Chicago. Chicago is one of the notorious sort of hotspots there in Paarl. But it's people feel physically threatened by the very location of that Tusong Center. So it is not only the safety of the structure itself, but also the personal unsafe feeling that people have. And that is a major risk for that Tusong Center as opposed to the one in Mbukweni. So it's something that we need to consider and perhaps, and see how we could roll out the safety plan to some of our areas that will protect our Tusong centers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Steven.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I didn't have the Tusong centers on my agenda, but I would love to hear just how is the funding of those centers managed? To what extent does the property belong? I presume there are various models to the municipality, the local government. What extent does it belong to province? Because yes, I have also recently, and I trust the minister has also recently seen the Tusong Center, for example, in Lambert's Bay, where there are broken windows and where the general appearance is unkept. But my actual question, Chair, is on page 89, where one would have expected the annual report to list a number of key emerging risks. Now, all that we're seeing there is that the emerging risks have been taken under review, and perhaps if we could just hear what of the previous risks were now taken off the list, and what do you now see as the key emerging risks? Because I trust that 6 months after the financial year end, that debate would already have started. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just one question from me from page 88 under the, I think it's number 2, municipalities may not sufficiently implement disaster risk reduction measures. I want to find out under those key strategic risks. The department is saying that they acknowledge the lack of capacity in the municipalities to coordinate and implement disaster risk reduction. And I understand that the department is providing their hands-on support to municipal engagement and provisions of disaster management. But if the capacity is not there, who implements those mitigating factors to make sure that they implement that as is? This is one of the key issues that we have to make sure that the municipalities, they do acknowledge, and they need, it's a need within our communities. If I can get clarity on that, of how do they go about looking at the municipalities like your Cedarburg, how do you go about for the disaster? Because of it might be you give the template, the training, but if you don't have a person that is responsible, that is going to make sure that that happens, there will be a risk in that municipalities. And also maybe, Chair, to acknowledge the 9 years of the clean audit for the department. And after the elections, usually it's a roller coaster, and so that this financial year, this past financial year, there has been an improvement from the last elections of 2016, was it 2016? So need to congratulate the department and acknowledge that the job well done. And I know, Chair, that you really agree with me that one. Thank you very much.
Chair, I only got one question, but before, Chair, I get to that question, and earlier on, I've said that I'm anyway an intruder in this meeting. If the meeting is not finished by 2:30, I want to be excused. Chair, it's 2:30. It's almost 2:30. So let me ask my one question, Chair. Page 87. The emergency risk management, and although it says that the accounting officer is responsible for the enterprise risk management, the risk champion only attended one of those quarterly meetings. If you look, for instance, on page 87, the top block, Mr. Singh, of Mrs. Singh, only attended one meeting. Although it says that there was always members of the unit, the risk champion only attended one meeting. And it's concerning, Chair. Are there specific reasons why? Thanks.
Thank you very much. If that's finished on part C, I will allow the department to respond. Honorable Minister,
So I think you
please direct.
committed.
You are sitting behind the fan. You are sitting behind the fan. Honorable Makama Mboja.
Okay, Chairperson, thank you very much, and good afternoon to the meeting once again. My question was, but it's not the same question as Mr. Murray, but it's on page 97. I see, 87 rather, sorry. I see, is it Miss E. Barnard, who attended only 2 meetings, but I could see the others with the asterisks that they were represented in the meetings. So out of 4 meetings, she has only attended 2 meetings. So I would like to know what was the reason for that, hence that she was not even represented like other members who were represented in the meetings. And then the second question is on page 97. Regarding the BBEE compliance performance, where they talk about developing and implementing of preferential procurement policy. There, I want to know, because it says there no.
Page, are you sorry?
Page 97. It's page 97.
Yes.
So the response there is a no. So they further made a detailed explanation on that issue. So my question there is whether the department will consider working with the small service providers with like little experience, and also can the department explain to us or share with us whether this will lead in them rotating the suppliers with that in mind. And then the last one is on page 90. It's not even a question, it's just I would like to applaud the department looking at the cases that they had. I think they only had 1 case as compared to other committees that we have, departments that we had meetings with where they had about 40 cases. So I want to commend their fraud and corruption strategy, that it's working well, and I wish that they could also share those good practices with other departments. That's me. Thank you, Chairperson.
Clapping hand. Not expecting that.
Oh, Chairperson, you can't say that.
Let us do give credit where credit is due. Now, Gonna hand over to the department to respond.
Okay, Chairperson, I want to ask Nazuka and Tome to answer the questions around the Tusong centers. Just around the emerging risks. So, I mean, from where we're sitting at the risk perspective, we always the ERMCOs and then subsequent to ERMCOs meeting with the enterprise risk component in the Department of the Premier, consistently try to re-articulate, reword the risks, get a better understanding of it. And so apart from the ERMCOs, we also have separate sessions where we sit with the colleagues of the enterprise risk management and also the chief directors, where we create sessions. So subsequent to the local government elections is on the emerging risks. So we are now deliberating on what we observe in local government externally. I think we are concerned about the impact of coalition governments. We haven't identified yet as emerging risk, but there are discussions amongst ourselves looking forward to what is a possible impact of this, because it goes with the possible some kind of instability in some cases, not all. And then what we're concerned about in particular is about the rate and the state of vandalism in municipalities on sort of municipal infrastructure, whether it's even ESCOM, if you want to talk about ESCOM. I mean, we just had 2 sessions with ESCOM yesterday with the CEO of the Western Cape, I mean, the MD. So there's lots of complaints, there's outages and stuff like that, but then it's as a result of vandalism, the cables are being stolen and that kind of stuff. And it's, we're getting increasingly complaints about it. So once again, we are discussing it amongst ourselves, what extent, and from why I'm sitting, if it is emerging risk, it would most probably be a provincial, a transversal risk. Vandalism, because vandalism is taking, if you talk to the city of Cape Town, how their infrastructure is being vandalized and stolen and so on. So those are the 2 things that we are thinking about at the moment. We haven't confirmed about it. And then obviously, apart from the risk that we are dealing with, we are also responsible for 2 transversal risk, and that is service delivery, the entire province, and also water resilience. So we've done extensive work around that. So we also deal with a number of transversal risks within the in the department. Just on honourable members, Moran, on the CFO's absence in the UMCOM meetings. So it's due to operational and personal reasons. But the CFO always ensured that there is representation from the Directorate Financial Management present in that meeting. But it was due to operational and personal reasons that you could not attend. I think Ms. Barnett is perhaps in the meeting. She can perhaps answer for herself. And then I think the case that you've raised, Honourable Member Voita, is not really a case, but I'm going to ask Pedro just to respond to that in brief. And then obviously Colin just to talk about disaster reduction and the work that we are doing to increase the disaster resilience in the province by means of increasing the capacity of municipalities, provincial departments and other stakeholders to deal with disasters, so that we as a department is not necessarily the first point of call, that municipalities becomes the first point of call, and that is how we want to strengthen the capacity in municipalities. Nazuko, just on the Tusong centers.
We will take this one issue.
Okay.
Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Chairperson. So, Honourable America, I actually want to say thank you for bringing up the statements regarding Paarl East, because I think what you've observed is quite true. It is located in it's right opposite Chicago, right, which is a gangster-infested space, and we know what happens there. But the most ironic thing about it is that the center was located there because it's central for the community to go through. The way that departments, for example, SASSA, Home Affairs, all the anchor departments that were previously at the Paarl East, for example, they've all started moving towards the digitalization space. So the municipalities do not really have the infrastructure to cope with all the additional requirements. So that's why you find that these key anchor departments now leave the Tusong centers and go to town, which has extra costs for the citizens, unfortunately. But I think one of the things that I think we've observed in Paarl East particularly is that also in Mbekweni, in light of what we've just discussed now, they've tried to have scheduled services where, so for example, some of the key departments like SASSA is right in town now, so people do go there, but where possible, they will still have one or two activities happening, maybe for example in Mbekweni. But I don't know whether you were also in Mbekweni, but the state of Mbekweni as well indicates to you that the municipalities don't have the funds to also keep that space running, because it also costs them money to maintain the actual physical structure. And when the centers were developed in 1999, the whole idea was to actually keep and anchor those. But unfortunately, with technology and everything that's changed, our municipalities, who are now the custodians of the Tusong centers, do not necessarily have the capacity to be able to house these. So it's not nice sometimes when key departments leave. Then the other issue is that when the key departments want to have additional things, for example, SASSA has OHS requirements, they've got home affairs, what's this digitalization, the municipality and even the departments themselves don't always have the funds available to do these upgrades, but they expect the municipality to make some miraculous situation happen. And when that doesn't happen, then we tried, as the Tusong program at Provincial government, to have some sort of we'll try to see, okay, how can we maybe renegotiate the lease agreements? Can we find the municipality and the key department, because they're like the landlord, the municipality landlord, the department's like the tenant. Sometimes they don't find each other because SASSA has specific requirements, then that's how they leave. In Paarl East, we actually had a site visit meeting not so long ago, and we saw that gate that doesn't work. The gate doesn't work. It hasn't been operating for quite a while now, apparently. And so what we did, we escalated the issue to our colleagues at Department of Safety. So our colleague there, Carl Tremors, and the other colleagues, and our colleague Luvuyo from DLG have made a visit there to do like a security risk assessment with regards to the gate not being fixed, and given the close proximity of how it is to Chicago. So that issue with the gate and everything has been, it's being resolved, or it's being brought to the attention of the relevant colleagues at Community Safety. Thank you. Yes, the areas go Chicago.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just on the capacity of municipalities when it comes to disaster risk, to manage their disaster risk, it is a problem. I think it is something that we have to deal with. I think the main point here is that the provincial disaster risk profile is a very wide profile. It basically runs not just the ones that we generally the most used to, which are informal settlement fires, wildland fires, flooding, etc. But I mean, we go all the way to having had to deal ultimately, I suppose, with the COVID-19 pandemic, but in between that, issues around avian influenza, where 18,000 seabirds were dying all over the place last year, earlier in the year. So we have a very, very wide profile, and it would be difficult for any municipality to be able to have the resources to be able to deal with that. So what we have done to deal with this is to look, we developed firstly, just to mention that disaster management is a district function, so it just makes your span of control, in this case, from a provincial perspective, a lot easier to manage. So we work with the districts, and then obviously they will work with the local municipalities in the disaster management space. So what we did is we did a provincial disaster risk profile where we spent a huge amount, and it's a living document, we spent a huge amount of time looking at every single risk that possibly we could pick up around possible disasters that could happen. And what we have done is that is all geolocated. So we have a very comprehensive disaster management information system where we can literally go down to any street in the province, any road, any pipeline running there, any school, how many people are in that school, what is the dynamics, hospitals, etc. And that helps us to provide a larger kind of management oversight over it and support. We also do developing plans, so we will work with a municipality. After we've done their risk profile, we then go in and we help them to develop their disaster management plans. And in that way, trying to, through training as well, through information sessions, we try to build up that capacity around that. And then just our mutual aid agreements. So we have a provincial mutual aid agreement, which basically means that if a municipality is dealing with an incident, they can call on their neighbors to come and assist. And we see it specifically when we're in our wildfire season that many times when a fire breaks out and it's being attended to, that mutual aid is requested, and then that mutual aid is provided. The province also provides resources, quite a lot of resources. In the last 6 or 7 years, we've spent approximately 60 million rand in providing emergency vehicles to municipalities. In the last 10 years, we've spent 180 million rand on aerial support and wildfire support. And then ultimately, we have what we call the JOC system, which is the Joint Operations Center system. So, for example, during COVID, where the entire province was involved, we would bring them all in. They would, obviously, from their centers, they would have all the stakeholders and role players needed to manage that disaster. And we could then issue the coordination instructions from there, receive the request for assistance and manage in that way. It is obviously going to continuously be a challenge, but those are the kind of measures that we're putting in place. Thank you.
Honourable Chairperson, good afternoon, members. Just relating to my attendance of the meeting, it's me that only attended the 2. I was on leave on the other 2 occasions. We have subsequently put measures in place to ensure that there is somebody that will stand in for me if in future I cannot attend. So we've subsequently corrected that.
Lastly, Honourable Chairperson, I want to ask Pedro just to respond to the no, and then obviously the one case, which is in actual fact is not a case. But Pedro.
Good afternoon, members. Mrs. Actually,
Yeah, please, Honourable Chairperson, I did respond to it. It's Bhavna Sulal Singh. He's the Chief Financial Officer and the Risk Management Champion. So I think Honourable Member Moran has asked. I've indicated due to operational and personal reasons she could not attend, but there was attendance on her behalf. Thanks.
Good afternoon, members. Just on the one case that was mentioned, our department needed service providers to do some cleaning at our CDW offices, and the advert went out, and our internal controls actually picked up that a husband and a wife were quoting collusively. So they would quote on each award, but they would just quote slightly below each other. We obviously checked our WCBD4 and noted that both of them are owners of these respective companies, so the one would own 50% and 50% there. We referred that to the Provincial Forensic Services, and they investigated. They did all the groundwork, and the conclusion was that that there was some irregularities, but not from the department side, and they commended the department for picking up the possible irregularity, members. And the award was not awarded, it was cancelled, and I think we re-advertised again. Thank you. Just on the note 10, item 10, the triple BE compliance, just to answer the member. So the departments, I think it's how the questions are being phrased and how it's interpreted. If we look at all the other questions, it implies that the department is a triple BE agent or develops or implement or is an implementation agent, but the department is not, because in terms of the preferential procurement regulations, those are set for the department and government to use. So To answer, the department has its accounting officer system, which governs how we need to implement the Provincial Procurement Policy Act and its regulations. So the department definitely makes use of small businesses. The department definitely rotates its suppliers. And the reason for us putting no there, it's how the question has been phrased, because it says developing and implementing, and the department is never going to be in a position to develop and implement. However, National will ask for our inputs into their regulations and their frameworks. Thank you.
Questions of up Honorable. And us now to section E for your information. Sections E start at 136. Can I have an indication of questions? Honorable America, Honorable Van Vestasian, and Don the Pen, Honorable Makaba.
Thank you, Chair. I want to echo the sentiments expressed by my colleague. Congratulate the Department of a remarkable clean audit report. Once again, I want to echo, you know. Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm going to go to page 179. Staff debt, recoverable expenditure, leave without pay. So how did that occur in terms of employees gone on leave and only afterwards the leave was reversed and then they become a debtor to the department? Just explanation with regard to that, as well as assets, assets that forms part of the recoverable expenditure, as people not returning assets that belong to the department that has left the department, and that is self-explanatory, except income tax. And maybe you can just give an explanation as to how, I mean, we paid income tax on behalf of somebody, and then obviously that person left, and so I don't know how that debt incurred. I think, Chair, department was one of the, if not the only department who didn't incur any irregular expenditure for the past financial year. I'm the only, I think, because, yeah, so they did have. So I just wanted to want to know, Chair, what's the secret? How did they get it right to not to incur a single rand in irregular expenditure? Although we've heard from the Department of Public Works that they have such a robust supply chain management unit, and but they did incur some irregular expenditure. That's all, Chair, for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I also want to congratulate the department, and I must say underspending per se is not necessarily an ill. We are trying, well, we are getting into a situation where, you know, when people save money, we actually say it's not good. And if you can achieve your objectives or your targets and have a underspending, then I think it's good. But there are some very interesting items. The first one is, it seems to me that there was a delay or a problem in appointing people for the training of councillors. Now, we all know that at one stage there were some expectations that the local government election would be postponed. Eventually it did take place on the 1st of November, and this is some 5 months before the financial year end. And we also know how, due to the high turnover of councillors, how important that training at the beginning of a 5-year term for councillors is. And I must say, I'm interested to find out why in 5 months' time were we unable to roll out that very, very important program of training for councillors, and what were the problems in that causing the delay so that that training couldn't take place at the level where it was budgeted for. The second one, in terms of the ICT equipment, yes, we also heard from other departments about the shortage of computer chips and the problems caused due to COVID regulations, particularly in China. But then when the last one that I have is the issue of salaries, and the fact that salaries were unspent, and the reason given was that there were these vacancies in the department. Now, the first one is, why suddenly do we have more vacancies than in the past, or are we struggling more to fill those vacancies? But then, if I can ask you to page 172, there's a very interesting figure for me there, and that is under 3.1. You will see that the salaries and wages between the 2 financial years remained almost the same. On the one hand, I think it emphasizes what the minister has said in the past, that to a large extent their budgets have not kept up with inflation and the increased demands on this department. But they are under other non-pensionable allowances. One would have thought that if the basic salaries were pretty much the same from the one financial year to the next, that the allowances that people receive would also be more or less in line. Yet we find a 25% increase in those other non-pensionable allowances. And I would like to know what might be the reason for such an, can I almost say, out of line or a uitskieter in terms of that expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My first question is on page 157 regarding the variances on administration. It's really concerning that you have that when you did not fill any positions that were caused by the delays of the department. Now on the report, now it's coming back as if it's a savings. So I'm not sure if I'm reading it right or wrong. So what I want to know is, why do you call an underspending a saving? And then because, for an example, the word savings means it was done on purpose, and in this case it wasn't. So that's my first question. And then the second question is on page 173. There, once again, I want to commend the department pertaining to the issue of outsourced services. The figure there is quite low, which is a very good thing, considering that as EFF we are against the outsourcing of employees. So I'm curious to know, how does the department keep their outsourcing services so low compared to other departments that we have set with, where they almost outsource all their services to other suppliers? So that's my second question. And then my last question, Chairperson, is on page 173 regarding the 2.5 million that is used on training and development. But when you look at your low-skilled workers, there's nothing that you have offered to those people. So I would like to know, why is that? And then very last question, Chair, is on page 176 at 5.1 regarding the losses that were written off. How did the government, 5 government vehicles get damaged? Why these damages caused through were they caused through the negligence of employees? And what steps did the department take to address that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. I just want to find out on page 201 on the statement of conditional grants and other transferred for the community development worker operational support grant. What is the criteria for that allocation, or if there's a matrix attached to that? Because my constituency, Bergrivier, is not there. And trying to understand if there is a community operations by my constituency is excluded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Zuko Hines is on the CDWs.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable members. The Member Moseko, in Bergrivier, we actually have 2 CDWs. We used to have 2 CDWs, there's only 1 now. But what has happened is the municipality chose not to enter into an agreement with us. So there's 2 municipalities like that in the Western Cape. It is Bergrivier and Swellendam. The irony is that the CDW, they work very well with the municipality, but we have now absorbed the CDW through the West Coast District, which provides the infrastructural support. We will continue to engage with the municipality. We understand that it's their prerogative. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Training.
I want to find out in that instance, can you just indulge us to say how does that affect the output of that grant? How does it shortchange the community if they don't want to come into agreement and you allocate the grant? That means there is a reason why you allocate that grant. It's at the end, the output is for the benefit of the community. So if that agreement is not there, how does it shortchange the community?
Honorable Chair, so with the work of the CDW, the reason why we have a grant, we're the only province that has a CDW grant. The reason we have that grant is because we don't necessarily have our own offices in each of the 30 municipalities. And so we enter into the agreement so that the municipality can then house our CDW. And so that amount is approximately just under 20,000 per CDW. It's to assist us towards those operational costs to house them and also for them to be able to make photocopies. And if there's minor procurement things that they must deal with, then the municipality can do that on our behalf. So as Heinrich has indicated, in each of the local municipalities, we have at least a CDW. We are using the transfer payment agreement as both on the one side to regulate us transferring the grant, but also for us to be able to say, these are the activities that the CDW is going to do in the area. The allocation of the time frame of the CDW, we've split it about 60-40%. 40% of the time of the CDW having to be done on municipal activities and 60% to be done on activities supporting provincial and national departments. So when a municipality chooses that it does not necessarily want to enter into that agreement, as the case in these 2 municipalities, Bergrivier actually wrote to us a year before last and said they prefer that they would not want to enter into an agreement. So the work of the CDW still proceeds. The only difference is that we've entered into the agreement with the West Coast District. So the CDW, then the provision for the office space is now provided by the West Coast District, but this area itself continued to be serviced. The municipality does not necessarily have an issue with a service being rendered by the CVTW, but they choose not to enter into an agreement with us. And in this case, the service delivery still proceeds.
In that instance, the municipality just want to be free riders. Now, no. Service like develop. What are the reasons? Maybe someone who's got a background on trying to understand.
Chairperson, if we're honest with one another, there was a lot, and I can remember my early days in this house, there were certain members who will every year knew they're going to they're going to tackle us at CDWs because they were of the opinion they politicized. Okay. So they will just push one political party's agenda, etc., etc. So we've worked very hard over the years to get them out of the political space. We've even built in a supervisor space later on because they can provide and they can contribute a lot. As Hein can attest to it, you also get your naughty children that will enter into the political space and make it very difficult for the other programs. And then you get stubborn mayors and get stubborn people that's been elected and they've got this thinking of what the program is about and they just refuse. We struggle every year also with the City of Cape Town to get them. It's really, because that's a big amount. It's how much million? So every year I must phone the speaker directly, ask the speaker, the chief, well, please, can you sign? Can you come to the table? Can we want to contribute, want to help? So that's the agenda behind it, to be quite honest. So I still believe that there's a lot of space and there's also a lot of space for improvement. So we will keep on working on it.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Honourable Chair, I'm going to ask Sandra to respond to just the councillor training underspending.
Thanks, Chair. So in terms of the councillor training, we went out on tender 3 times. The first came in with an amount of 80 million, the second 40 million, and we've now finally got a service provider. We are only able to give training to 20 councillors at this stage for a pilot program on the municipal minimum competences. We have, however, also gone out this year after having a debriefing session on our seasonal schools. This year we've also had 2 seasonal school intakes. In the first intake there was about 78 councillors out of, we gave about 160 places. At the moment we've done another one and there's 163 councillors that have taken it up. There were 200 spaces for them. So I think for us it remains an important aspect that we will keep focus on, Honourable Member.
Chairperson, I'm going to attempt to answer this question on the COE underspending, and then I'm going to ask Pedro and Heidi maybe to respond on some of the balance of the financial matter. So we got money from the provincial treasury, and that's around the filling of posts in relation to the JDMA. It's the methodology that we run in the province. Managed to, and it's on contracts, the treasury's view is to see the performance of the department, what are the outcomes, and so on. Managed to appoint, made 2 appointments on it. We went out on the recruitment and selection process to appoint the director. We were unsuccessful. We advertised, we headhunted. We were unsuccessful to fill that post. That's a lot of money, and the fact that it's on senior management level. And the other one is the director IDP. So went out, advertised, headhunted, unsuccessful, and we went out on advertisement again. So that obviously contributes to the underspending in relation to COE within the department. I want to just ask between and Heidi just to respond to the balance of the questions. Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you, HOD. Just to respond to Member America, Honourable Member, on the on page 179, relating to recoverable expenditure. It can also be read as possible income or possible, it's a possible income for the department. It's cases that is currently still under investigation. Yeah, so it's due to damages and it's currently being investigated. So as soon as we have an outcome, it will move to 2.5, which is what the other member questioned as well. So it takes a process, we investigate. If there is a bit uncertainty, we will send it to the state attorney to provide us with a legal opinion. Because a lot of the times we find staff do lodge a dispute. So, but those are just cases that has been. And of the 38,000, it's one case relates to a laptop, which costs about 24,000. So that's the majority of it. Just relating to the income tax, it specifically relates to bonuses where an official receives a bonus and then he leaves the department. So the personnel system automatically recalculates the tax, and by that time the official is gone, and it can become problematic tracing the official in trying to. A lot of the times the official don't. They need an explanation of why do they need to pay back these tax, and it relates to the bonus. The leave without pay, the amount is 339,000. It consists of 12 cases, but there are 2 cases that is quite big, and it relates to pillar cases where when officials pillar application was declined. So that can result in a lot of leave. That is also currently under investigation. And then you do get your 1 or 2 days here and there where an official doesn't have leave and he needs to pay for it. Okay. On page 173, which relates to the training, the 2.5 million. So that the training that we see there basically relates to training that we provide to municipalities relating to, and I think at the bottom it says MMC training, ward committee training, and firefighting training. Now, some of our staff are included in the MMC training, but it's not that department doesn't, or the Western Cape government doesn't offer training to its staff, whether from the lowest level to the highest level, because Provincial Treasury has separate training programs. So they normally do it during the first 6 months. They'll send out a list of training that you can provide, and the training relates to of a technical nature and on your soft skills in terms of junior management, senior management, presentation. So that is not reflected in here, but the training, there is plenty of training for the officials in the department. Training is also provided via the National School of Government, sorry, yes. And those relate to your governance issues like your ethics training and your modified cash standards.
Chair, sorry, Chairperson, sorry to interject. I just need clarity on the last question that you mentioned, that the 2.5 million, it's for training of councillors. Is it for councillors or municipalities? Does that exclude the department?
It's part of it, councillor training.
It includes.
No. If it could be, yeah, it can. If there's councillor training, it will be in there. Yeah, I think we're saying the training and development includes mainly the following. So there could be other types of training in there. And then on the pensionable allowance, that is within, I think for the past year, government officials has been receiving a pensionable allowance. I think it's about 1,200. It depends on the salary level. Hence the increase from the prior year. Thank you.
So, Honourable Chairperson, just the outsourced services. So I think the preference in the department is that we actually build internal capacity, that we appoint staff internally, and then build capacity and sort of institutional knowledge, but also expertise And part of it is also then to appoint certain critical skills on contract, rather than going out to service providers and appoint service providers to do the work. I think through that way we get more value for money, because as you heard in terms of the training, the prices that are coming in is just exorbitant. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to look for the increased amount to the AG, their invoice, to find out how much was the increase, because it's just mentioned, yeah, Auditor General, because it's mentioned on the environments of on page 14, but I've been trying to search where can I see it, on which page, and I can't see where is it recorded. I can be, that's just to check also the percentage of that increment. How was it from the anticipated amount?
Chairperson, there's a question that was not responded to pertaining to the written off amount of that pertained to the losses, the damaged cars. So I did not get any response on that as to what happened. I think it's about 5 vehicles that were declared damaged. So it resulted to a write-off amount as a loss for the department. Page 176.
Sorry, I missed that one. Those are GG vehicles, and you can see the amounts are quite small. So I don't have all the information relating to them, but I do deal with them, and we normally pay a 10% of the damage, because most of the damage is covered by GMT, your government motor transport. So those are 2,000 rands and 1,000 rands, and it would probably come down to minor scratches from our side. But it's not. If that vehicle was written off, it would be over 100,000, 90,000 then. And if the officials was found liable, then they would have been included under your debtors. So it follows the same process: investigate, and we try to extract as much information from the official. If there is any uncertainty whether an official is liable, we don't make that call. It will go to the state attorney, and they will actually advise us whether an official has forfeited their state cover. So, yeah. On the audit fees, the audit fees increases with the increment that we receive from the AG. Another process that is extensive. It goes through, it gets discussed with the department, it gets discussed at the audit committee, and the figures does get probed. But most of the time, it is percentages set by the AG, and they will provide their reasons as well. Thank you.
I just want to find out, is it the amount that is on the note 4.3 on the audit cost, external audit cost, on page 174?
Yes.
Okay, and then if that's now, I do understand that it will be in the negotiation, but what were the reasons to an extent that your anticipated amount became more increased? Because from 14, it's what the statement that you put there is didn't anticipate that percentage of increment. When I read the statement of on page 14 of on the environments, you indicated that on program 1, under that additional funds allocated towards awareness campaigning for hazard awareness, fire prevention, responsible water usage, drowning, and you continue to say that also, as well as the invoices received from Auditor General South Africa, were higher than anticipated. So what were the reasons for it to be higher than anticipated? What were the reasons from them?
Yes, we've got the AG in the room, but I think I can answer that. With COVID-19, the AG worked from the offices, so they haven't been, the SNT costs wouldn't have been that high. They would sit at the offices, and the AG normally starts in January, and our year ends in March. So we wouldn't have known exactly when they planned to start, because with COVID-19, they had a late start. In this year, it seems like they had an earlier start. So for Jan, Feb, March, you can't really anticipate what invoices they are gonna give you in terms of their planning, because they might decide to finish their planning in Feb. They might to push for March. It is very difficult to estimate. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. The AG can answer if they.
Honourable Chairperson, so. Oh.
AG.
Thank you, Chair. The department is correct. The reason for increase the overlap. There was actually no increase in the actual audit effort. The only increase from the previous year is relating to travel. I think to conduct. So we spent a lot of time at the department's premises compared to the previous year. So there was an increase relating to subsistence travel, but with regards to the actual audit effort, there was no increase. The reason for the huge movement there is, as the department correctly said, it depends on when we commence. So in the previous years, we ran late with the MFMA cycle, so we had to commence late with the PFMA audit. Hence, we could only bill a small portion between before year end, and then in the 2020 financial year, we normalized our. So we're able to commence early. Hence, we're able then to bill more money before.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to have an understanding. I think it's one of the complaints also the municipalities, they talk to us about the increase of the money that they don't get it sometimes. So when you did the overlapping, the department has to pay for the overlapping. How do they quantify the invoice that you are going to give to them? Why a certain time it has to be more? Why a certain time? Just help me, you are my partner, to get an understanding of if you are going to claim a certain amount, how do you validate that amount to a department or a municipality for you to say that, for them to have an understanding, and me and have an understanding of, I can maybe respond to them if they have to ask why your prices are increasing sometimes and sometimes.
You, Chair. And in this case, by overlapping, we mean that we charge the same fee. It's just that the timing is the difference. So because the year end is March, if we start in January, we can do more work, and in that way we are able to charge the department, because now we started in Jan. But now in a case where we start in mid-Feb or 1st of March, we only have 1 month to do the audit. So we can only invoice them for 1 month. So that will have then an impact on how the fee is split between the different years, because the audit runs over 2 years. That is now the case here with the department government.
So perhaps also from our side, so I mean the Auditor General, its representative is absolutely correct. The senior manager is in 2021, obviously COVID was at the height of it. So they didn't work in the offices of the department. They've worked remotely. We've gathered all the payment packs and all the evidence and stuff like that, given it to them, and they've either at home or in their own offices then assessed those. it implies that there was no need for subsistence and transport and parking and so on, which in the previous year, the amount was less. Obviously, this year, COVID sort of eased, and then they convened the normal method of auditing. Back in the office early January, they take a break, they come back and so on. And obviously then what we get involved is in the subsistence and transport and the parking and that comes in. And I think it's also in the audit plan, but I mean, or the engagement of the Auditor General. I mean, we normally sit down like this and they sit on the opposite side and we twist the arm as far as possible in terms of the increases of the audit costs on an annual basis. So, I mean, there's robust discussions and so on, but we, at the end of the day, then analyze what they've audited and whether the amount is inappropriate that they've charged. So I think from my side as an accounting officer, there's due diligence undertaken to ensure that that there's value for money in terms of the audit fees. Thanks, Chair.
I think I do understand, but I just wanted, because as we are in SCOPA, we listen to each and every engagement of the outcry also of the fees. And if we are talking the fourth industrial revolution, when you were using it, you were paying less, and now it's back to the manual, you are paying more. Why don't we stick to what worked? Because we still accepted the audit outcome of when COVID was there. So it's based on the rationale behind the pricing. If anything, we can do anything to cut the cost. Let it be the system that works for all of us. So it was based on that, but I think we are partners will engage in also having that understanding why it's important to go back to the system of twisting the arm like this, rather than using the same system that was set by COVID. Thank you, Chair.
In future, you would prefer that AG audit from their offices than coming physically and most probably I will take it on this one. It's a question of where you treat each case based on its merit. Yeah. Yeah, you see, Honorable America is reminding us that in one department, we didn't have a problem with that. Nobody raised that. There were 40 million. So we are complaining now about 4 million, you know. So this is about, it's 4 point, how much? 4 point. Yeah, so compared to the, so, you know, so that's why I say it's not a question of one size fits all. We treat each case based on its merit. I see the honorable members have exhausted their question. They don't even have follow-up questions. Now, one area I just want to ask in general, when we were dealing with the department that deals with sports, culture, I asked the question on around the issue of indigenous people. But they said, no, that's not falling under them, because I thought that because it's heritage related. They said, no, when you see the department, local government, that falls with them. And we were even told that in future you might also be called traditional affairs. And so maybe I don't see in your budget, you don't even budget for that. Don't anticipate that we will have traditional leaders in the province. The province where there seems to be the first people are mostly located here. Now, for the department not to have a budget or some form of, it can be even in the form of consultation or public participation, because in my constituency where I'm from, I had a lot of appointment of people who are traditional leaders. Maybe I just wanted to check. I don't know. That's another debate for public participation.
Thanks, Chairperson, Honourable Chairperson. So we've got a program 4, and it's to do with traditional leaders. and we provisionally put there 1,000 rand. The legislation is now activated, and there's a process, and I'll ask Albert just to respond to it. But we, in the interim, out of own resources and savings on the baseline, have now in the process of appointing 3 staff members to help with the research in the process of recognition and acknowledgement of the Khoisan groups. And there has been an official launch by the national government in the Western Cape around the Khoisan legislation, and awareness raised around the process of application of groups that do qualify and that think that they have is authenticity about the existence. They can apply. But the Premier has allocated that to the Minister of Local Government as well as the department. But I'm going to request perhaps Albert just to spend a minute on it. Thanks.
Thank you, HOD. Honorable Chair, your question is mainly around finances, but let me just give an overview of where we are in terms of the implementation of the Act. The Traditional Affairs, the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, which came into effect last year, 1st of April, it has certain processes or phases that it follows. I'll just sort of indicate them at high level. One is basically the establishment of the Commission on Khoisan Matters. That is the responsibility of the National Department. That commission will then begin to do an investigation of the applications. So they've got to open an application process, and then they would investigate and do recommendations around the indigenous people that actually do that application. And that gives certain responsibilities at different levels for all levels of government. One being the National Department, where they have to establish the commission, and the commission then does the investigation. And then at provincial level, I can separate our responsibility into 2 levels. One being prior recognition. Prior recognition, basically where we have to look at the legislation, identify the gaps in legislation. It's basically around research, identifying gaps, doing policy development. And also, prior is where we do institutional capacity, sort of develop institutional capacity to implement the Act. And the other responsibility will be basically once they have been recognized, where we have, as the provincial department, have to provide financial and administrative support to the recognized leadership. And at on municipal level, basically, they would involve them in municipal councils and so on. But that is gated in terms of the Act, which is the amendments which were done to the Municipal Structures Act. Now, in terms of doing that, there are particular dates that have been put in place. For instance, the commission has been established for a period of 5 years. It has got 5 years to do its recognition. In fact, now it's 5-1 because the commission was established on the 1st of September last year. So it already has at least when is it now, in November? At least it has got just over a year. And it will stop around 31 August 2026. The minister will then decide whether that needs to be sort of extended. But that is the responsibility of national. And the commission then has to sort of commence the application process, which is what HOD is referring to. In the province, the application process was opened on the 30th of March 2022. This will go for the next, it's supposed to be for 2 years. It will go for 2 years. That is ending 29th March 2024. So they will be doing the application process during that process, during that period. Now, what HOD mentioned is that currently we are recruiting just basically to have that institutional capacity support. We received from, over the MTF, we received from the Provincial Treasury an amount of just 5.2 million, which is over the MTF. 1069 million being 22-23, 2 million around 23-24, and then another 2 million to be for 24-25. That is basically the people that will be doing research and policy development. So as it is now, we still have the 1,000 rand, and we'll basically, the 1,000 rand is basically to make sure that there is a structure or a program like this. It has been like that for the past couple of years since the bill was started. That was way back before it was the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act. So it's been.
Have traditional leaders. Now, Honourable Minister, is there anything you'd like to say from your side?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you to the members of the committee. Always good to have this kind of interaction. I understand your oversight role, and we appreciate it. And I'm very pleased to be part of this department. 9 clean orders don't come from cells, and we understand that we need to keep it clean. So it's always a new challenge, and I think the team is up for it. So thank you very much.
HOD, do you want to say anything?
Thanks, Chairperson. Just once again, thank you to the entire management team, to the Director of Financial Management as well, and to the staff members that are back in the office and at home. I think it has been a team effort. So from my side also, just to echo my appreciation. And also thank you to the committee for the oversight role that they do play and the interesting questions that they do ask. Thank you very much.
AG?
Chair, from the Auditor General side, thank you for the opportunity to engage with us.
Chairperson?
I think, thank you, Chair. It's always a privilege to work with a well-run department like local.
I think as we are going to be rounding up, let me make use of the opportunity to thank you, Minister, HOD, and the rest of the staff of the department coming to our meeting and answering our questions the way you've answered them. I know sometimes some of the questions might be very uncomfortable, but rest assured that we are not trying to catch you up or trying to trick you in any way. We are just pleased at the collaborative manner actually take and respond. You might know that also we are very good people, but we're not easy people at times. We are just trying to make sure that we are playing our role, the executive accountable, and we are actually an important part of that accountability ecosystem. Accountability can only be effective if it's done collectively and also cooperatively as well. So if one partner does not want to cooperate on accountability, it can lead to the whole accountability. Thank you very much for available, eager to answer questions. The Auditor General as well, the Supreme Audit Institute of our country, we are always very happy and grateful to have you as a dependable ally in the accountability ecosystem. Thank you very much for always being available. As that goes the same to the Audit Committee Chairperson. Thank you very much. Also all forming part and parcel of the accountability. That said, it has brought us to the end of your part in terms of answering questions us. I'd like to excuse you so that the committee can. Thank you very much, AG, as well. Thanks, Minister. Bye-bye, sister. I didn't recognize you. I didn't recognize you with your